What's up, everyone, and welcome into the Buffalo Sports Collective. It is Monday, April 3rd, 2023. As always, I am PK alongside my co-host, Phil. Phil, what a weekend it was for Buffalo sports. From Friday through Sunday, we had 6 games total in the Buffalo area.
A lot going on now that we got the Bisons back. We're back to a 3-team swing, which I guess with the Buttes we were for a long time, but they had some really long breaks in between and didn't play a ton of games. So at times we were still down to 2, but I feel like this is the most active 3 teams we've had since it was Sabres, Bills, and Bandits all at one time. So we got a lot of games to cover.
We do. So before we dive in, you can follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective. And while Twitter is still up and running, Buffalo Sports Co. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out our website at buffalosportscollective.com, where you can find all of Phil's articles about the breakdowns of stuff we don't hit on the show. He dives further into everything that we don't talk about, and then check for the time breakdowns in the description of the show. Phil, what was the most anticipated game on the Buffalo Bandits schedule ended in them getting rocked to sleep big time on Saturday in Hamilton. They lost 18-7. Yes, that score is correct, as much as we wish it wasn't. 18-7. It got ugly real quick. Kluch and Byrne had 2 each. Sullivan, Buchanan, and Smith added the other 3, I should say, 1 each. Vince made 19 saves. Shanahan, our backup goaltender, who has seen, I think, 3 total minutes of action so far this year, came in relief multiple times and made 15 saves. Shots were 52-49 in favor of the Rock. Bandits did win at the faceoff dot, though, 15-14 power play. 3 for 7 for Buffalo. 2 for 5 for the Rock. So you can't blame the refs for this one, Phil. It was just an atrocious game on all fronts.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to say and nothing to say all at the same time. I mean, it equates kind of to that Colorado game that they had, but I mean, we'll try to be a little bit more analytical with this one. I mean, 18-7, they just simply looked awful. I mean, it just, from the offense, the defense, the goaltending, the entire performance was terrible. I mean, like you said, right off the bat in the first quarter, they looked atrocious. And even at halftime, if you had, once again, I mean, it's one of those things we bring up sometimes, but if you had told me that the Bandits had, 6 at half, 5 at half?
Yeah, it was 11-5 at half.
So if you told me that the Bandits had 5 at half against the Toronto Rock, not knowing how many the Rock had, I would say, okay, that's a pretty decent first half against a goalie and defense of that caliber. We're doing okay. But the 11 on the other side was terrifying, and then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse until things boiled over. But it was just an all-around awful performance. I mean, it's a game that you go into trying to be incredibly hyped for. Like you said, it was one that was circled on the calendar, and as the season has grown on, should have been the most important and exciting game that we've seen, and the Bandits just did not come to play at all. They looked very slow, I think would be the biggest concern I had with them on offense and defense. They just looked not with it, I don't want to say not interested, but the intensity wasn't there, speed wasn't there, team just was non-existent. I don't really know what happened, but you mentioned it kind of off podcast in general, and should have mentioned it last podcast that we had, that this is a game that's kind of been coming for a long time. I mean, the Bandits offense hasn't been right. They've been squeaking out 1-goal wins, a few in overtime here and there. I know San Diego last week, a 7-6 victory is exciting over a really, really good team like that. Even if it was overtime, even if it was 1 goal, it's still a good win. Yes, it was low scoring, but a win against a team like that's really good. But there's only so long that you can limp through these victories, these close games, not playing extremely high caliber lacrosse, and eventually you're going to run into an incredible team like this and just get rocked. It's just was kind of a long time coming for this team.
Yeah, I know producer Pat said he hadn't watched it yet and it wasn't worth watching, and I said pretty much just the last 2 minutes of action was the only actual life that it felt like the Bandits had all game, where it was like there was actually some pushback and they waited until the final 2 minutes, and it seemed like Toronto was the one that initiated that kind of stuff. It just seemed like they weren't ready to play. They weren't interested in playing. It was just an ugly game overall. And I know producer Pat was like, should I just watch the game or should I just wait for PK's rant? And I went, I'm strangely calm. Like, I'm weirdly calm about this. And I feel like for the most part with the Buffalo Bandits this year, even with their 1-goal victories and their loss to Colorado and their loss to Albany, even though I came back in the next show and said I think I was too hard on them, I've been very calm about this team just because I know what they're capable of. I know who they're coached by. I know who the leaders in the franchise are. I know who the leaders in the locker room are, where I know that eventually they're going to get this ship righted. It's just the Buffalo Bandits way. They always get the ship righted. Now, I am leaving room open if this is the one year that they don't get things fixed. But again, they've had players come in and out of the lineup and the forward group all year long. The defense has been having some injuries more recently. Dylan Robinson might be out for the rest of the season, possibly even further than that, is what you found out about one of the articles about one of the lacrosse people that write for a living in the NLL. But it's just I am not going to overreact to this game based on what the defense and the goaltender did in this one, or didn't do, I should say. They had a horrible, horrible game. They were leaving too much for the defense. They were leaving too much room in between the shooters. I can remember the one time where it was just Chandler Rogers, I think it was the one coming up, and Justin Martin backed off, and then they just ripped it by Matt Vince. It seemed like the Rock knew exactly what they needed to do to expose the defense, to expose Matt Vince. They got to him early, 2 shorthanded goals within the first 3. It was 7-0 to start the game. I'm you know how I'm always with the Sabres. There's going to be 10 games where you're definitely going to lose. There's 10 games where you're going to win no matter what you do. And then there's the rest of the games in this. I kind of want to throw this one in the garbage just because of how lopsided it was. How much can you take away from this? Based on, they just beat this team earlier in the year. You just took down the top team out in the West in San Diego and allowed 6 goals. This time you allowed 18. I understand that. It's so hard to just put it in the trash. I know we're going to talk about it and go into a few more details, but I'm not going to read too much into this game. I'm not going to overreact about it. I'm very calm about it. But if they come out next week and they throw out in 2 weeks because they got a bye next week, if they come out in 2 weeks and just throw out another bad performance where they can't score 10 goals, where they've given up a lot of goals, then I think I'm going to be a bit worried. But I think they're going to use this bye week to get a bit more healthy, to fix the issues and move forward.
We can start with the offensive side of things as far as dissecting, because I had the same kind of reaction and thoughts as you did. I just kind of want to throw it away, but we already did that with a few of these games, especially the Colorado one. So it'd be nice if we try to dive into this one a little bit. The biggest difference I saw between the two offenses was simply quick ball, off ball movement.
Yeah.
And the passes being a lot faster. It's something the Bandits offense hasn't been very strong at for a while now. They do very far outside, slower passes, then kind of try to take things on one-on-one. But the way the Rock were able to whip the ball around, take extremely quick shots, not let Vince really get into place, keep the defense on their heels, and just kept moving and moving and moving. Were pinpoint accurate with all their passes, all their shots. Everything looked really impressive, and obviously the 18 goals kind of show that. But I think one of the things, again, and it stinks because we haven't seen, it's about health more than anything, or the offense needs to change while Nanakoke and Robinson are out. But that was one of the things that was working for them early in the season, was a player like Robinson making those lanes so they can get a quick pass off over to Cloutier or Byrne, and the defense wasn't right in their face immediately, and they could take that quick shot. And same thing on the other side with Nanakoke, kind of making a way for Smith. And at this point in the season, if he's healthy again soon, Fraser would be the other guy taking those quick shots. But right now, they don't have that style of player, and I think that comes down to trying to find a way to win with the players you have. And that style that the Rock played that worked so incredibly well is not something the Bandits can really pull off right now, because I don't think they have those players to make it work. But just some kind of faster offense movement, and they just seem so slow. Just that was the biggest takeaway for me in this entire game, either on defense or offense. They seemed so much slower than the Rock. The Rock had tons of transition opportunities. They had a lot of offensive opportunities, defensive opportunities, where they just looked faster and hungrier and more intense, and just the speed of the Rock was so much higher than the Bandits. The Bandits looked like they were just walking, and I don't know, the speed just seemed so far off for the Bandits compared to the Rock.
Yeah, I mean, when you were watching those two teams play each other, you could tell in that game who was, who wanted it more. And that's something that you can kind of say for the Bandits that rarely ever happens is they almost quit. I'm not saying they did quit, but it almost felt like when they got down 7-0, they kind of quit. And even 11-5 at half, I was like, okay, this is a second half team. I think even the announcers go that this second half team, they come out and they perform great in the second half. And they got their first goal like a minute and a half in. I'm like, okay, 11-6, you got it back. And then anytime they felt like, okay, there's a little bit momentum, the Rock would just rattle off 2 or 3 in a row. And then all that momentum was just gone. It's just, I think you summed it up perfectly. The Rock were passing the ball around with ease. They were moving around like, madmen out there, just passing around, making the defense move, made Matt Vince and Delvin Shanahan move around and just pinpoint accurate shots after that. Buffalo, since these guys have come back, since Kluch has come back, since Byrne has come back, they haven't been able to jive on offense. It's just they went from an offense that passed the ball around a ton, that were getting 4 goals from McCauley, and Brandon Robinson had a 4-goal game and stuff like that, where these more smaller level players, the depth role players that know their roles on the offense when everybody's healthy, were the ones that had to step up. So you had to change your offensive philosophy. When you went back to the original way, it seemed like, I understand that's when Nanakoke and Brandon Robinson both went on the lineup. So what was working earlier in the year, getting those lanes and setting those hard picks and being able to get in close, you don't have those same guys, but you would think that there would be a secondary option or a secondary play calling or something from Johnny T to change up their offense. You're missing your hard-nosed players, your Brandon Robinsons, your Nanakoke, your Frazier's, the guy that can get in to the lanes and set those hard picks and get guys open. You don't have that. It's just mind-blowing. The last 5 games, they've been averaging 8.4 goals a game. The last 3, 7.33. So it's not like it's gotten better with more guys healthy and more guys back in the lineup, more situated with Byrne and Cloutier. They've gotten worse, and that's the biggest thing that is alarming to me is the offense just can't get going when your superstars are back in. The 3 guys, Smith, Kluch, and Byrne, the top 3 point producers who are back this year, haven't really done much in the way of like taking over. Like, where are these guys that take over? And I understand they're 3-2 in the last 5 games, so they've still got a winning record in their last 5, but this offense has kind of just dropped off a cliff since they started coming back. And again, I'm not putting the blame on them. It's I guess they've been adjusted 4 or 5 games now. I don't understand where the offense went and how to get it back.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the thing. We're not saying that they're bad players by any means, right, or that they need to go somewhere else. Obviously, we know they are staples of this team, and even throughout these games where the offense has been bad, they've still been the ones who have been getting a few goals like this one.
Yes.
I mean, you look at Kluch and Byrne, they were the only 2 with 2 goals each. So, I mean, they've still been the leaders. They've still been the ones scoring. So, I mean, obviously they're extremely important to this team, but the offense as a whole just seems very stale, and they just need to be able to switch it up, I think, while they're waiting for Robinson and Nanakoke to finally get healthy. And without them making a move for the trade deadline, you have to hope Robinson is back sooner than later, right, and they can hopefully fix what is going on offense when those players return. I mean, for weeks now, and in weeks and weeks that those players have been out, that has pretty much been what we're holding on hope for this offense currently, that when they come back, everything's going to fall into place. And when this offense is fully healthy for the first time, in theory, all year, if Frazier's also healthy, I mean, it'd be the first time that the entire offense has played together, that's when it's going to click and really work. And I mean, that's kind of what we're holding out for. But until that time happens, they have to find a way to score more goals and just find a different strategy, because what they are currently doing, what they're currently running out, is just not working very well.
Yeah, I guess we can flip it over to the defense now, because we've kind of talked about the offense as much as we can. They just got to get into those dirty areas, score some dirty goals. They've got to get over that hump that they haven't made. Fast. Yeah, pass faster. Just get this offense going. It's too much. It's too much. I'm not even going to call it selfish, because I don't think they're selfish. They don't really care who scores. It's they keep the ball in their stick too long.
Yes,
and that allows the defense it just whip it around. Get to the defense. If that's the style that they're going to play, where it's the shots from the outside, they're not playing the style that they need to with the ball. Because
Right.
if they're not going to be able to have those hard picks set and get those wide open lanes and get in close, you're going to have to rely on your outside shooting. And they're capable of doing that. By far, they have sharp shooters all over the place. But you have to pass the ball around to get the defense moving, get the goalie off his feet. Like Rose. Rose is a very flat-footed goaltender. He doesn't move very much. He clogs up a bunch of the net. You have to get him moving to get those lanes. If that's the style of play you want to play, you can play it. But you got to make the defense move so you can get those gaps. That's how you can adjust to not having those big-time bullies on your offensive end like the Brandon Robinsons and the Nanakokes. You can get those lanes, but you got to pass the ball around. You can't just, try to deke and dive, because they know, the defense knows, if we just keep you in front, you're not going to get by us. You're not going to be able to score. If you're going to score, it's going to take an amazing shot. So I think that's just what they got to be doing if they're not going to have these bigger body guys in the lineup. But the defense, Phil, I am not worried whatsoever about the defense and the goaltender. I think this is a one-off. I mean, if you look at the numbers already, I got them in front of me. They've allowed, in 15 games they've played so far, 9 times out of the 15, they've allowed 10 or less goals. And that's insane. I mean, the other ones, there's an 11, there's a 12, there's 2 13s, and then the outliers are 15 and 18. And those are your 2 or your 4 losses. So I'm not concerned about what this defense is capable of. They showed it against San Diego. They showed it against Halifax. They've showed it against Rochester, some of the top scoring teams in the league. Toronto just got ahead of them. I mean, they got out early to Matt Vince. The announcers even said it. That's how you can beat Matt Vince, is get to him early. I think those 2 shorthanded goals to put him up 3-0 was kind of the dagger in it to get Matt Vince off his game, and it kind of showed. But that's the one areas of the games that I'm not worried about is Matt Vince and the defense. I think they're going to rebound great in the next game versus New York, and then you get Toronto again.
I think the big thing with the defense is exactly what we said in our preview, is that they haven't seen Toronto's offense in such a long time. You can't really look at tape. I mean, they can look at tape of other games, obviously, but until you play that team and their new play style, I mean, the way that the Bandits played the Toronto Rock earlier in the season was not the Toronto Rock that they are now. Their offense has taken huge steps forward since that game, and their whole team has. So I think it kind of took this game to, like you said, get punched in the mouth a little bit, but also really take a close look at their offense. Yes, they looked absolutely incredible, but I think now you can use this game film going into that next matchup against Toronto when it happens and kind of take a step back and look at what worked, what didn't work. I mean, mainly it was what didn't work, but you can now have a solid picture of what your defense did wrong against this high-powered Toronto Rock offense, where I don't think you had that beforehand. And you can watch as much game film as you want, but until you experience what that is like and really look at what they're doing face to face, I think it's just going to be a little bit of a struggle. So I think next game they'll have a much better game plan going in as to how to stop them and slow them down and what worked and what didn't work. So like you said, overall, just not worried about the defense or Vince at all. I mean, they are the only reason they've won so many games recently with these incredible 2 games against Halifax, 10-9 victories, and a ridiculous 7-6 holding of San Diego. I mean, that's literally the only reason that this team is where they are right now, is because of the defense and Matt Vince. So I'm absolutely not concerned about them.
I'm not going to say that this is the reason that they lost, because you got destroyed by 11 goals, but he didn't play in the Colorado game, and he didn't play in this game, and those are some of the biggest numbers on defense that you've given up. Get Kellen LeClaire in the lineup and keep him there. Like, I don't know if this is just time management. I don't know the reason behind him not in the lineup, and there could be, again, it could be an injury for the reason why he was not in, even though he was out Colorado and back in San Diego. I don't know the reason for him being out, but they gave up 13 versus Colorado and 18 versus the Rock, and he wasn't in the lineup. You brought this bigger body guy in to play against teams like this. Please keep him in the lineup. The only other thing that I'll talk about this, and then I'm kind of ready to move on because this game was gross. I'm very confused, and again, this is just, I don't know if it would have made a difference whatsoever. After Buffalo went down, and let me pull up the time of exactly when they went down 3-0. It was, let's see here. I guess that would explain, but they went down 3-0 less than 3 minutes into this game, and 2 of those were shorthanded. If I were Johnny T, that might have been the perfect time to take a timeout, calm everybody down, regroup. And I know that the defense kind of rebounded again. They didn't score for another 5.5 minutes, but That's one of those times where, all right, 3 minutes in the game, we're down 3-0, nothing's looking good, 2 shorthanded goals we've given up. Let's call a timeout, let's regroup, let's talk things over, focus, get back going. But he didn't. And that was a bit head scratching to me. That would have been the perfect time to call a timeout where, before it got to the 7-0 and you were just waiting for the quarter to end.
Yeah, the only thing I can think of with that is, you haven't seen a performance this poorly by the Bandits in a really long time.
Right.
So it's one of those things where you're almost just expecting the team to fix it on their own.
Yes.
At the same time, in a game that is going to be this close, they usually use those timeouts right before halftime to get that last second goal. So 3-0. I understand exactly what you're saying with that quickly. Like you said, 2 shorthanded, that is not good. And that is a time I would agree with you that you can maybe, take that time out and be like, hey, what the heck's going on? We got to really get our heads in this game, because if we start to let it slip, we're not going to be able to catch back up. And that's exactly what happened. But I don't know if he'd ever really take that time out. I feel like that's a tough one. And I do have a now that we're on to coaching, I do have a quick coaching question for you.
I am known to be a perfect lacrosse coach, and I will try to share my expertise right now.
Well, it's nothing about that, so
okay.
This will be even easier for you.
I don't know if I'll be able to answer it then.
When fans, I guess we will say fans. I don't know if analysts call it out too often, but fans, and especially in a game like this where the team just doesn't look prepared, and fans say, it's the coach's fault that this team wasn't prepared to play this game. I never really understood that from an intensity standpoint or just a player on the field standpoint. He can yell at them as much as he wants, but the players have to go out and play. Now, if it's a strategy standpoint, they, ran out the wrong offense and the wrong defense as far as how to attack and how to defend, that's completely on the coach. But I never understood when people call out the head coach because the team wasn't ready to play the game. Like, he can give a rah-rah speech in the locker room as much as he wants and try to get the guys fired up. But once they're on the field, there's only so much he can do other than continually yell at the players. I just never really understood that philosophy, I guess.
This almost sounds exactly like us talking last June when everybody was calling for Johnny T's head and they wanted him fired because the team put up 8 goals and, he was outclassed, he was outcoached by Colorado and blah, 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 blah. And I was going, at some point you got to look towards the players. He might be saying exactly what to do to beat this defense, and the players just might not be doing it. You could be drawing up these schemes and the players just aren't doing it. At some point, the coach ain't playing. The players are the ones playing. Like you said, he can only say so much. It comes down to the players going out on the field and executing what he needs them to do. I am fully on board of Johnny T remaining the coach. I don't even think there's any question, and at least in the majority of fans' eyes, that Johnny T is the right coach for this job to get them over the hump and to that title. It's just, I don't understand the criticism every once in a while where they're just saying they weren't ready to play, this and this and this. I don't know what he's telling the players to do. I don't know if it's just the philosophy is wrong. I don't know if it's the players not doing what he needs them to do. I don't know. So who am I to question and say that the players weren't ready to play this one? They were unprepared and they didn't know what to expect and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure that a team that they have faced, what is this? Twice in the playoffs, 3 times last year and twice already this year. So what is that? 7 times? 7 times in the last 2 years
and
that they faced this team.
The greatest rivalry right now in the NLL.
Right. I'm pretty sure they knew what to expect. It's just they had a dud of a game.
All right. I was kind of more wondering if you had an opposite opinion, but you seem to agree with me there. So all right, we can move.
Yeah,
on.
They got shots to Rose. I'm not questioning Rose didn't have a good game. He's an unbelievable goaltender. It's just they didn't do what I think they needed to do to beat him, and that's quicker passes and quick shots. They tried the quick shot multiple times. It just didn't connect, and the offense has just been out of sync for a while now. So who am I to expect that to work? But Phil, are we ready to put this game where it belongs in the trash can and garbage disposal and take it out to the curb?
It's nice that they have another bye week coming up. They can
they need
really take some time to heal and reflect, watch some game film, and come back strong. And we'll end this on a positive. You go 3-0 to end the season. You're number 1 in the entire NLL. So there you go. Go out and do it.
Would it be number one in the entire NLL, Phil? Let me double check this because I know
Does
they
San
had the
Diego have to
head-to-head.
lose one?
Yeah, San Diego's only got 3 losses, so San Diego needs to lose one more.
Yeah, they're 11-3. We're 11-4. So
yes,
all right.
But
San
they would
Diego
be
has to
number
lose
one in
one
the
of their
East.
last 4.
Right.
And then
the Rock got 2 games left. The Rock do, and Buffalo have 3 games left with one of those to Toronto. So again, yes, this game was like you said perfectly on the Friday show. If they would have won this one, first place is looking real good. It would be very, very difficult for them not to finish first place in the East. But you lost. Guess what? You got Toronto back in Bandit land in 3 weeks. You beat that one. You take back over first place. You finish the season 3-0, like you said. You're first in the East. No sweat, no worries. They won it 14-4 last year. They go 3-0. They're 14-4 once again. But use this bye to get healthy and figure out this offense, Phil.
And just a few other games around the league to, kind of really drive home that this happens to everybody. Georgia put a thrashing on Halifax, 17-7, a team that is fighting for playoffs.
2-0 this weekend.
San Diego and Calgary, the 2 top teams in the West. Calgary got crushed 14-8 by San Diego. So it does happen to everybody around the entire league. And a current game that's currently happening that slightly matters to the Bandits, or could if they decide to implode the rest of the season. Philadelphia is up 10-7 over Rochester as we're recording.
I like that sound of it right now. Yeah, Georgia's come back in a storm. I think they've won 7 of the last 8. They're Lyle Thompson's pretty good at lacrosse, Phil. But we'll go over milestones now. Ian McKay was only 5 loose balls away from 100. He got it. Second time passing the century mark. Nick Weiss was 4 loose balls away from 100. He got it. He got 7 in this one. Cal Buchanan is now at 900 or over 900 shots for his career. Nick Weiss is over 700 loose balls for his career. Matt Vince did tie Mark Stainhouse and Colin Doyle for 7th in NLL history with 266 games played. Steve Priolo now has 13th place all to himself in PIMS because of his 5-minute major. That is another thing we're going to have to keep an eye on because if I believe what somebody posted on online, he could be in line for suspension because I think this is his 3rd major penalty of the year, and I think with 3 you're up for a suspension. But it's just something to keep an eye on. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's not going to happen. I don't know the rules enough, but it's just something to monitor. And then Dane Smith, he moves into 5th place all by himself with points in a single season for the Buffalo Bandits. He needs to crank it up big time to not only beat the assist record, but keep pace with Jeff Teat, and I don't think he's going to do that.
Yeah, I don't think so. So we're going to focus on the breaking of his own assist record. Yes. And as far as Priolo goes, because it's a rule that we don't really know, I will I'll look into it for the article tomorrow.
There we go. Stay tuned for Phil's article. That's a little teaser for the people in the show business. But BSC update, this encompasses the 2 Sabres games, 3 Bisons games, and the 1 Bandits game. I am up 2198.05 to 1913.72. You outscored me 24-22 with the BSC Buffalo Bandits.
Yeah, pretty much all downhill from there. So I'll take what I can get.
There you go. So we already went over around the league. Georgia has been on a tear right now, and that helps with them beating Halifax. But next week is a bye, so we will not be talking about them, but we'll give you the breakdown of what's going on around the league. Then the following Saturday on the 15th, they are home versus New York. The following Saturday, home versus Toronto. And then a following Saturday, April 29th, they are in Albany for the final game of the season. So again, 3 games that they need to win to not only keep pace, but pass Toronto for first place in the East. So, Phil, we'll move on to the Buffalo Sabres here. Whew, what a weekend it was. Friday versus the Rangers. Levi and net for his first start. They win 3-2 in overtime. Peterka, Greenway, and Skinner in overtime was the game winner. Levi 31-33 saves. Shots were 34-33 in favor of the Sabres. And then Saturday, very next day, in Philly, won 6-3. Tuck had a hat trick. Okposo, Greenway, and Skinner score. So Greenway and Skinner are both on a 2-game goal streak. And then UPL started in this one 39-42 saves. Shots were 42-29 in favor of Philly. Their record sits 37-31-7.
What a weekend indeed. I mean, just playing back-to-back games was always going to be tough. Playing the Rangers, I don't care if they're coming off a back-to-back. They're a very good team, and they are fighting for playoff position. It was going to be a very tough game. There were one too many Rangers fans in the crowd that I didn't appreciate.
I'd say about 5 too many.
Yeah, at least 5 too many while we were there. But being there for Levi's first game, my goodness, was it a lot of fun, and he looks legitimate. I mean, I know you and I'm already a beyond massive fan of his, but I know you and I are trying to take it with a grain of salt as his first ever start and not try to be overexcited and pumped up, but it's really hard not to be, seeing what you saw on the ice in his first ever game and just everything he says in the post-game interview and just the way he carries himself. I mean, you hear goalies and players that have kind of the same interview response questions over and over and over, and even some of the goalies, they kind of say, oh, I love the big moments and I want to be there, and sometimes you can tell it's a little bit scripted, but Levi looks like he wants everything. He wants 60,000 shots a game coming at him, and if he is not getting that, he's upset. And just watching his post-game interviews, his pre-game interviews, you can tell how incredibly giddy he is to be here and how excited he is. He's just so authentic about everything he's doing. He's just so excited for the opportunity. He's excited to play. He's excited to be here. He wants the big moments. He's just absolutely loving life. And the way he played in that game, I don't know if you could have asked for a better start to what is hopefully a long career, but in general, a rookie start in a massive game where you're trying to stay in playoffs, his first ever game, and he looked very comfortable. And I think that's the biggest thing to take away from his performance is how calm and poised and comfortable he looked as a rookie first start just coming out of your sophomore year of college.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can say. I was very excited to be in person and watch him live and see all the tendencies that he does. He's a man of habit, Phil. After each whistle, he goes to the sideboards, taps it 3 times, comes back, sweeps the back of the net, front of the net, every single time. He meditates in between intermission breaks instead of going to the bench to talk to his teammates. Maybe he just doesn't like them. Maybe it's just a routine. It is just routine. I know I read all the articles, but it's just the way he, like you said, carries himself. He's got such a calming presence in net where he's always in the right spot. He's so stinking quick post to post. He's always in the right spot. He's one of those smaller goalies at I think 6 foot. Most like all-star great goalies are like 6'2" and taller. Being at 6 foot, he needs to be in the right position at all times. And, he does it. And he's just crossed 21 like 2 or 3 months ago. So I am, like you said, a very good start. Remaining, trying to, like you said, take it with a grain of salt. Try not to be overexcited about him, but he's a dude, Phil. He's going to be really good. I think you called it on Friday. He's going to be really, really good. But yeah, besides that, I think the Sabres did really well limiting the chances in the first and second period. I know the third period got out of hand. I think there were 19 or 20 goals against for Levi to come up huge, but I thought in the first and second period, they didn't really allow very many high opportunity chances. The one goal was a freak goal over top of his head. The second one, the defense needs to do a better job of clearing it out. But, I mean, Cousins' drop back pass behind the back to Peterka to rip it home. Greenway's one-arm goal. That's the reason you brought him in. Another big-bodied guy that just armed it. I don't know how he got such height on that puck with one arm, but unbelievable. And then Skinner in overtime. He knew as soon as that puck went in, he wasn't trying to celebrate with his teammates. He went right to Levi. And then I think that speaks more about Jeff Skinner, the person, than it does about anything else, where he's an all-time great goal scorer. He's an all-time great teammate. But to know in that moment, hey, I just scored an overtime goal, I got to turn around and go find the goalie.
Yeah, and I mean, speaking of that, like you said, that third period, I mean, it was fun being there where literally every single save that Levi made was cheered on, and it was kind of fun. And I even asked you, because I haven't been to a Sabres game in a little bit, and I didn't think this was ever a thing, but I asked you, like, that doesn't happen ever for every, a goalie's save every single time. Like, literally every save he made was clapped and cheered. I know the big ones are always, cheered for, but not every single save. So that was kind of fun from the fans. But just the way he was able to control the game in the third period when the Rangers really came over. And I know the team kind of spoke about it. He kind of spoke about it. Granato really spoke about it, how they allowed him to get comfortable in net in his first ever game. Like you said, I think the shots were maybe like 5 shots by the Rangers through like midway through the second. They really allowed him to see the puck well early on, really settle into the game, understand the pace of the game, really just kind of calm his nerves. I don't know if he even had any. I don't know if he ever has any, but just really let him ease into the game. They didn't start the game, allowing 10, 15 shots right at him right away. They really let it just settle in. Like you said, the third period got away. That's when he came up huge and made some absolutely incredible saves and really stepped up. And even in overtime, he looked perfectly fine, comfortable, and then they end up getting the win. So really great team win against a very strong team, still trying to find their spot in playoffs. So overall, really exciting night for Levi and just a really great team Sabres victory.
Yeah, and then move over to Saturday. I mean, you got the loss by Pittsburgh versus Boston, exactly what you needed to move up. And this was a must-win game. You can't lose to Philly. All these games are pretty much must-win or at least get a point the rest of the way out because you're still fighting to get back in it. And they took it home to Philly. I mean, they were down early, 1-0, I believe it was, and it didn't it didn't get out of hand whatsoever. I mean, 1-0, then Okposo gets the goal, and then Sabres rip off 4 more in the second period. The second period is when they took over. I thought this was a great... What's nice is Tuck hasn't played. Thompson hasn't played, and they're still being able to produce. I think it just shows how important a guy like Alex Tuck was and is to this lineup, because when he was out of the lineup, and I know Samuelson was out of it as well, but they weren't the same offensively without Alex Tuck. And having him in the lineup, it just gives them an extra bit of spark. It gives them an extra bit of veteranness on that top line who's been in these playoff races before, who's been to the playoffs before. It's just... having him in these critical moments and seeing him get that hat trick is perfect. And then on top of that, them tossing UPL out there. And I know Granato has said that having Levi on here and UPL, it's going to help push each other because they're both going to want the net and it's going to bring the best out of each other. And at first, when I saw UPL and net, I was like, okay, I probably would have went Comrie because of how great Comrie has been in the last 2 games he started. They threw out UPL like 8 days rest, and he showed exactly why. And I think he probably wants 1 or 2 of those goals back. But, I mean, 39 saves, they kept them to the outside, no huge danger chances. I thought they played immensely good in a must-win situation.
Yeah, Tuck being there is just incredible, what he's able to do. That trade alone to bring him in and what he has added to this team has just, it's been incredible.
What they needed.
Exactly. He wasn't supposed to be necessarily a high point producer, a high goal scorer, yet here he is looking ridiculously comfortable as arguably right now the number 1 forward on the team with Thompson out. He pulls off a hat trick with pretty much ease. I know Philly was struggling a little bit in net with some of those. I don't think all of those should have gone in, but at the same time, you got to be in those chances. I don't know. I think it was his second goal that he just pulled a complete snipe on a no-look shot. He was looking forward, didn't even take a look at the net, and just whipped it at the net, and it was perfect upper 90, left side over the goalie's shoulder. And it's just those kind of plays. And his sneaky speed, he's just burning people left and right with his speed. He's just an interesting player where he's not flashy, but he is at the same time. He just, the way he's able to score, you just don't think of him as one of the more high-powered, flashy offensive players, but then he goes out and makes plays left and right that look really good, but you still just don't consider him one of those guys. But that is even better for him because, again, he has that sneaky ability because you don't really just see him as one of those top players, so it really benefits him, and he's able to pull off a hat trick. And like you said, he's definitely one of the leaders on the team. He's someone that, even headed into this year, I thought he might be one of the prime candidates to be a captain because he's always seemed like a leader since he's been here. Just somehow one of the older guys on the team in his mid-20s, even though he looks like he's about 34 and very veteran, especially compared to most of this team. But he's played really well. I thought Middlestat on the top line for these 2 games. Yes. I think he deserves a ton of credit. Even give credit to Granato for making that adjustment and giving Middlestat the chance, but he has stepped up a ton in the second half of the season. I think he has looked really, really good. Mentioned it on the last podcast that he's had a lot of pretty solid games recently, and then this one again, stepping up into that top line role. And I think you said he had 5 assists between the 2 games. he's looked really good. He's looked very comfortable. I mean, I think it was that Philly game where he was able to poke it past 2 defenders and just go right around him, burn him, and make an incredible pass that set up a goal. He looks much better. He looks like a player who you and I, for a brief moment, had left for dead on this team, that he has revitalized himself once again toward the end of the season, and this is the middle stat that we have hoped for this entire time. I'm not saying he's ever going to be this, beyond incredible player, but he's going to be a very solid role player for the Sabres if he can keep this up. And then the other player I want to mention on the forwards that I think is going to be pretty ridiculous for the Sabres as he continues to grow is Jack Quinn. My goodness, the man is just on a mission right now. He looks so comfortable. You can definitely tell he is developing more and more as the games go on. I think it was the Philly game, and I think it was the goal that Tuck scored. I think it was his last one to give him the hat trick, where he was able to stop the pass on shorthanded opportunity. He was able to bat the puck down, go around the defender, made a few stick moves, and then whip the pass over to Tuck, who made an incredible move in front of the net. But it was pretty much all Quinn who set that play up, and he looks really good. And again, he's another player who's continued to grow as the season goes on, and I'm very excited to see him develop and what his career is going to look like for the Sabres.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a 30-goal scorer next year. And I know this is not my hot take Friday, but I think he's going to be a 30-goal scorer next week.
Yeah, he looks
next year. He's
really
good. Yeah, which is good because after he got drafted, he was kind of down in the majors, minors, not doing much, and then something clicked last year into the playoffs and everything, and he took the reins this year and just flew with it. And credit to Granato for sticking with him. I think the development between him and Paterka, I think both of them are going to take major steps next year, and you're going to have a true second line goal scoring line that you can contribute to the first line as well. But Phil, biggest game of the year on Tuesday, Panthers. If they lose, it pretty much solidifies that they're not going to make the playoffs. If they win it, man, the playoff hopes are going to go sky high. It's going to be unbelievable. But you cannot lose that Tuesday game if you want any chance the rest of the season to make it to the playoff. I know there'd still be a chance, but that's a 4-point game. It's similar to the New York Islanders game that won Tuesday a few weeks ago, where if they win it, they're right back in it, and they lost it, and everything kind of went downhill from there. There's no more rebounding after that, Phil. After the Panthers game, Phil, it's a major game on the schedule.
But again, 7 games left. They are beyond right there. It's not like there's
That's all we wanted.
Whisper of a hope that they are, slightly mathematically in it. No, they are right there fighting for that playoff spot. Are they going to get it? Who the heck knows? There's still 7 games left, some against some extremely good opponents, including that Florida game that is, like you said, going to be the game of the year so far. But even still, 7 games left. They are in the playoff race. They are right there in it. This is what we asked for at the beginning of the year. Not something I think you and I would have predicted or even really, I guess we were hoping for it. Why wouldn't you be? But I don't think this is what we could have predicted from this team, especially given some of the injuries they've had to their bigger players like Samuelson, like Tuck, now like Thompson. They're finding ways to win even when some of these bigger players have been injured for quite a long time, and having a revolving door at goalie, I think that might be, I don't want to say it, but it might be their downfall this season is simply, we've talked about it kind of all year, just not knowing who to put in these situations. You just don't have a true number one goalie, even like you said, and I was thinking the exact same thing when UPL went in. I was like, oh, that's an interesting choice when Comrie just had back-to-back really incredible games, and then Levi played really well. I don't think you're going to throw him right back out there. Obviously, the next day, it wasn't going to be a back-to-back for him, but still, UPL was not the choice I think either of you would have had, but then he came in and played incredible. But I think the problem moving forward is, who do you put in net? And I don't
Levi.
know. I don't know.
Levi.
What?
Levi. Florida, Tuesday, the team that traded him away because they didn't think he was any good.
That's true.
You put him in versus Panthers. I think he's ready for the moment. I think after that Rangers game, before that Rangers game, I would have been hesitant. I would have thought, okay, get him in there. You got Detroit on the schedule. You got, Columbus at the end of the game. They're going to get him a few games. I think after what I saw on Friday, and again, I'm trying to be contained, even though
it doesn't sound like you're contained at all.
Right. I think you got to give him the net. I think he earned it after that Friday performance.
I think so as well. It's a massive opportunity. It's what he's asked for. It's his whole career. And this is a situation where, Man, as a head coach, I'll put it this way. I don't want to be Granato right now. I do not want to choose any one of those 3 goalies because any night you could be wrong with that choice. And with so many precious games left and so many precious points left, I don't want to have that decision. But if he goes with Levi, I would 100% back it after what we saw, like you said. And the biggest thing to me last thing I'll say about him, but his ability to not overcommit when he was playing was one of the biggest things I saw in just his style of play. It's something we've seen a little bit too much of from other goalies from the Sabres recently, where they will dive all the way across the crease to make one big save, but then leave the entire net open. I think he only did that one time the entire game. For the most part, he stays very calm. He stays right between the posts. He knows when to get over when he needs to, but just seeing him stay in control and composed, he seemed to just be in the right position pretty much every single time. And I think that's a really nice thing to see from a Sabres goalie, because I think sometimes, I love UPL and the way he played, but even that last game, he made an incredible save, and I think he was completely out of the net by the time it was over, and I was like, that's what I don't love about those situations. But UPL did play a very good game against Philly and was one of the reasons they were able to hang in that game as well. So overall, just don't want to make that goalie decision, but if it is Levi, more power to him against Florida.
So BSC update, in the 2 games, you put up 9.5. I put up 21.5. Phil, any changes to your BSC team for the Florida game?
I knew I should have put Levi on my team.
Yeah, you could have tried.
I know he would have gotten 0 points, but that's what I got anyway, so I should have
That's fair.
I should have done it. Middlestad's playing incredible, and Greenway is also playing interesting, but like you said, the second I take Middlestad off my team, look at that, he gets 5 assists, and that's when he does great, so that's depressing. And it's happened, pretty much every single time I make a roster
every
move.
time for the 3rd spot. Yep.
I hate it. Opozo's playing surprisingly. Surprisingly is not the right word. He's a good depth player. But I don't know. I really don't want to, for the sake of the Sabres, I don't want to put Middlestad back on my team. I'm likely going to lose season 2 of this whole shebang anyway. So let's go with Greenway because he's had some fun recently, and he's looking a little better. I do love the idea of the future of a potential Krebs, Yost, and Greenway line, because I think that would be a wildly efficient 4th line for this team as a checking yet also skilled, fun kind of line to have, and I hope they do that at some point. But I'll take Greenway over Rosick.
That's good. I'm not making any changes. So we'll go to the wild card watch here. Well, I'm really good at this. For the wild card watch, we got Pittsburgh playing right now. They're 3 up on Philly. Thanks a lot, Philly. And then Islanders are down 1. So as of this recording at 8:09 on Sunday night, where there's still games playing right now, New York is in first, 77 games played, will be 78 with 87 points. Florida's sitting at in second, 77 with 85. Pittsburgh third, 76 and 84. Buffalo's in fourth, 75 and 81. So they're going to have at least 2 games in hand, at least 5 points back. They're in it, Phil. And that's all we've been hoping for. They're in it. We just need them to win and get help. But mostly focus on yourself, because the max points are right even with not even, but they're right in it with the Islanders and Pittsburgh. Nobody's really trying to claim those 2 spots and run away with it. Islanders were trying, now they're falling back a bit. Pittsburgh tried, now they're falling back a bit. Florida's been trying, now they're falling back a bit. So they're leaving the door wide open for the Buffalo Sabres.
Here's what I'm thinking. Okay. Buffalo, Ottawa, first, second.
No, I don't like Ottawa. I hate Ottawa.
Well, me too, but I just think it'd be funny.
That'd be more fun, yeah. They're
just because they're at the bottom of this pile right now and haven't been talked about the entire season. But no, I
if you have noticed, I've dropped Washington and Detroit from the list, though.
Good, get them out of here. Washington has their Stanley Cup; they're done.
Yeah, on our next show, we'll go over the must-win Tuesday Florida game. So wherever you are, make sure you're available on Tuesday and watch that game, because it has playoff implications. We'll move on to our final segment here. Buffalo Bisons, they're back in action. Friday, Scranton Wilkes-Barre, they lost 2-1. Saturday versus Scranton Wilkes-Barre, won 6-4, and then Sunday in the rubber match, they won 3-2 in 10 innings. Phil, anything that stand out in particular for any of these games that you want to talk about, or the weekend review, or the prospect player review, whatever you want to talk about? Let's just combine all these and talk about whatever we want.
And the Friday loss, I think the big thing that stood out, it's early, so we're not going to make any sweeping, kind of assumptions about this team, but I was hoping for a little bit more of an offensive performance just in general from this team moving forward, something that we want to see a little bit more of compared to last year. A lot of these low-scoring games, Scranton Wilkes-Barre had one of the best pitching staffs last year. They likely do again this year, but seeing players like Lopez and Horwitz get a good start to their season as well as the pitching, I mean, I don't know. The pitching is going to be really great. I mean, Lawrence, 2 solo shots wasn't amazing, but a really solid 5-inning performance. Then the bullpen looked absolutely incredible. Iser and Pearson, especially. Pearson seems like he's going to be scary all year. Saturday, the 2 standouts, Barger and Brantley. Barger's going to be the standout pretty much all season. Heck of a first overall draft pick by you, but 2 for 5 already on the season with a monster 2-run shot. I mean, he's just going to be lights out. Once again, the pitching looked really good, but as far as prospects go, Younger looking really strong again as a early prospect. And then that 3-2 win in 10. Francis is going to be someone who's going to be really interesting to keep an eye on this year. He was, I don't know, you want to say like a complete lost cause last season. So seeing him start his year, not only with a start, which is something he didn't do much last year, but also going 4 innings, something he also didn't do much last year. No run ball, something also he didn't do much last year, and 7 Ks. So Francis with an incredible start to his season, and I don't want to blow that out of proportion, but compared to what he was doing most of last season, that stat line looks beyond incredible. So hopefully that is good things for him this season and what he is going to continue to show. And then some of the offense in that game as well. Schneider and Barger. I mean, Barger is just going to be ridiculous. And once again, the bullpen looking really, really strong.
Yeah, I mean, the weekend review, they won the series 2-1, 10 runs for, 8 runs against. I think the offense is going to take a bit longer to get going rather than the pitching staff, it seems, at least this early on. I mean, 3 games, it's less than 3 runs a game that this pitching staff has allowed. We went into this season saying that the pen's going to be unbelievable. The pitching staff has a great opportunity to be lights out, and that's kind of what you saw. I mean, only giving up 8 runs. I mean, your offense, like you said, only 10 runs for the whole series isn't ideal, but they're coming up big when they need to. I mean, Bernard in the Sunday game came up huge, 2 for 4 with all 3 RBIs, and all 3 of those RBIs, the 2 of them were in extras, and the 1 was the tying run. So he came up huge. He's that veteran presence in the lineup that I think is going to add value to the team, not just because of his clutch hitting, but also an example for the younger guys like Barger, who he worked 2 walks in the Saturday game with that monster home run. I'm sorry, 2 walks in the first game with the monster home run in the second. He was 4 for 12 with the home run and 2 RBIs. A great start, and he's carrying over what he did late last year into this season. Schneider, yes, he had 3 Ks in the one game, but he was 2 for 9. Pearson and Younger, or how are we pronouncing that one, Phil?
Younger, I believe.
Younger? We'll go Hayden Younger. I think they're going to be lights out closers and lights out bullpen guys. I mean, both of them went multiple innings. Both of them had, lights out strikeouts. I think they're going to be really, really good. Like we were saying, this bullpen's very young. The bullpen has high talent and like we said earlier on Friday, I said that you might have starters that can go 4, 5, 6, 7 innings, but their leashes might be more short because of how lights out this bullpen is. And you saw it in these first few games. I mean, I think there was 1 earned run given up by the bullpen the whole weekend. That's unbelievable. And if that can continue, they had great bullpen guys last year, but imagine what it's going to be this year. I'm very excited to see what this offense can do as they get more accustomed. I know Candel has already been changing, and we're working the lineups to get everybody involved. And I think as the season goes on, again, it's only 3 games in. As the season goes on, I think he's going to fine tune more who are your reliable bats to keep in, 4 or 5 times a week, rather than, okay, this guy played this day, we'll sub in this guy. This guy played this day, we'll sub in this guy. So I think as the season progresses and as you get into May and June, you're going to see more of a solidified role of who's going to be your starting 9 moving forward. So Phil, BSC update here. You scored 10, and as is tradition for all the BSC teams this year, I put up 24. Any changes to your team so far 3 games in?
I think I'm just forfeiting the whole season at this point.
That's fair. Might as well.
I did want to pull the trigger really early and just switch something up for funsies, but I think I'll hold for one more little set and see kind of how things fall into place. I think you're quite happy with your team, so I don't think you're going anywhere anytime soon anyway. So I kind of just have free reign of probably everybody for a little bit because you're quite content with your 24 ridiculous points you just put up. So for now, I'm just going to hold and see how they do in more than 3 games.
Yeah, I'm also going to hold as well. But on our next series that we got coming up, Worcester, I know I always say their name wrong, and I will get it right eventually. They're 2-1, 25 runs scored, 19 runs against. And I know this first segment of the season didn't have a ton of content with it, but after 3 games, there's only so much you can talk about. So as the season progresses, we're going to dive more and more into the games. And as Bandits season ends and the Sabres season ends, we're going to have more time dedicated to the Buffalo Bisons. So if this didn't seem like a lot, stick with us. So on our next show, we'll go over the first 3 games in that series. But Phil, last one here. We do it every Monday show, our BSC weekly MVP. And this one went back and forth. There were a couple of candidates, nothing from the Buffalo Bandits this week at all. None of them deserve it. There were a few Buffalo Bisons. Barger was up for it. Pearson did well in the bullpen. You had Casey Lawrence and Thompson and, Francis all have great starting showings for this team so far. But got to go with the rookie, Devin Levi, and his 31 save first career win in overtime performance in a must win versus the Rangers. How can you not give it to the kid?
Honestly, I think his in-between whistle antics deserve it alone. I love a goalie with some weird superstitions and tendencies and interesting kind of things that they do. I was a soccer goalie for a while, and I had a few of my own random weird kind of things I would do as well. So I love seeing a goalie have this many, and he is unique, and I'm really glad we got to watch the in-between commercial and media break and just see him on the ice the whole time for his first game, because he does some interesting things. I mean, even in between, coming out of an intermission, he has a whole setup of throwing some water in the air 3 times, and he's just got his rituals down, and clearly they work really, really well for him. But it was a lot of fun to see, and I think his tendencies alone in between the whistles deserve the MVP status, as does, an incredible 31 save rookie overtime performance.
Yeah, I mean, the last time we had a freak of a goalie that had these kind of things, it was Ryan Miller, and that turned out pretty stinking good too. So I'll take it. You got to be, if you're going to be really, really good in the NHL as a goaltender, you got to be really, really weird, and he's got those antics. So I'm very excited to see where his future goes, and he's got a long career ahead of him. But Phil, anything else to the show before we shut it down for a work week?
Nope. I am all set. Close her up.
Me too. So on our next show, we got the massive Sabres game on Tuesday. Make sure you're in your seats for that one. Even if you're traveling to Florida, make sure you're in your seats there, or get your keister in a bar or a friend's house or a couch at home. Make sure you're watching that game. We got 3 games to talk about for the Buffalo Bisons, and then we'll go over what the week will be for the bye week for the Buffalo Bandits. But thank you all for listening to another episode of Buffalo Sports Collective. Follow along with us on Facebook and Instagram at Buffalo Sports Collective, and on Twitter at Buffalo Sports Co. Visit our website at buffalosportscollective.com. Subscribe to our channel wherever you listen to podcasts, and make sure you leave us a review on Apple and Spotify. Until next time, bye-bye.